So the Chicago market's saying we can buy 36 million tons of local produce, but it's not being produced. Hy-Vee has said we can buy all the local produce that can be produced in southeast Iowa. So our barrier is not the market. Our barrier of getting local produce to the market isn't that Hy-Vee's not running spiffs on local food. They need local food. How are we gonna produce the local food that they wanna buy?
Yeah.
Well,
What's
it's
the
at
barrier?
the price point, so that's the important part that we were thinking
So
of as well.
what price point is objectionable?
Right, that's what we would
Yeah,
need to
'cause-
determine, right? So it's not like, I mean, we're even talking about butternut squash at the prices you're talking about, which wouldn't cover his, bottom line. So it's potentially not, and this idea of contracting, which I guess was a question at the local store level, if I was to go in and talk to them, they can't contract, right, for a future, right? This is what I have on hand. Is that right?
I've done meet the buyer
I
meetings
just wanna.
in Illinois and Michigan, and it always goes, I told Bob this would happen. It always comes down to the farmer says, you're not gonna pay me enough,
No, I wanted,
and the buyers are saying, well, you don't produce enough. And then no one wants to talk about what's preventing production of local produce from happening. So what's the barriers? It's not the price point,
yeah,
we've
we
not
did
talked
talk
about.
about that as well, in terms of like mentoring and getting started on that whole, like how.
But if you pay $275,000 for a John Deere tractor,
we
you
did.
don't say, well, corn is still $3.25 a bushel. You should come down and price on your John Deere tractor, not to pick on John Deere, but I'm perfectly happy to.
$100,000 tractors.
Yeah.
I'm wondering about labor, right? So I'm sure you talked about when I was gone, but isn't, like, you look at all the big grass vegetable growers, they all bring in lots and lots of labor, and it's kind of hard to do that on a small farm, and there's not the crews that run around like there used to be.
You're assuming it's hard to do. Have you tried to do it?
Well, I grow a big garden, and yeah, I've come back because it's hard.
It's hard. I think there's enough real issues though to get to. There's enough real barriers in the market. Let's not imagine what they are. Before we even ask Hy-Vee what they're gonna pay us for something, we say you're not going to pay us enough. And they do the same thing in Michigan. It drives me nuts. It's like,
I want to challenge you on, because this is a basic economic principle, right? If the price being paid for that squash goes from 50 cents to $1.50, at a certain point, the grower community is gonna go, I'm now in a position where I can do that profitably, supply will go
Everybody
up.
jumps in.
Supply will go up, so price to farmer is a very real barrier to getting Hy-Vee the volume they want.
no argument.
Okay,
No
so
argument.
when you asked what was the barrier, and I
What
would
is the
say
barrier?
price to the farmer is the first barrier.
But you don't know that it's a barrier because you don't know what the price is.
But I think you also missed that we did say the mentorship and helping us understand how at a farm level we could start on this road.
So one of the things that we talked about, one of the things I talked about in my presentation is that flat pricing has worked.
Yeah.
It's worked in Michigan, it's worked in Wisconsin, it's worked in Illinois, it will work in Iowa. Let me assure you, but let me tell you how it works. You take the highs and you average them with the lows, and that average price becomes the flat price. And then when that flat price is known, then you make the decision, can I produce butternut squash for that price? You can make that decision before you produce it. And so, unlike a corn grower, every corn grower this year produced 93 million acres of corn, knowing that corn was a lower price than what it was gonna cost them to produce it. So maybe we should just have corn growers do all the produce, because they're accustomed to producing a crop that's worth less than what it costs them to do.
I'll use that segue to introduce our big idea, which is
Good.
that the corn grower is willing to do that because there's an entire system of subsidies behind the corn grower that cover their ass during those down years, right? So our big idea is really simple, and I got this from John Eichert, who many of you know. John just pointed out that we have the commodity ag system, the big ag system in Iowa that we have, directly as a result of the policies that were put in place by our friend Earl Butts way back in the late 50s, and the outcome is quite predictable. Now, in a similar way, the big idea here is like, imagine if we were sitting down with congresspeople and USDA representatives and Treasury Department officials and saying, how do we tune the dial for a policy that gives the equivalent to the produce and fruit and nut grower, small meat producers, so that in time as they adjust to these new incentives, we can now have a robust, balanced local food system. So I don't know who knows who the influence peddlers are in our state, local, state, and federal governments, but to me, that the only way we're gonna balance this equation between commodity big ag subsidized and small starving local food producers is policy.
So what changed when the risk management agency said, okay, now we're going to let produce growers and organic produce growers participate in revenue insurance?
Right.
So with revenue insurance, produce growers were given the same guarantee as corn growers.
How long ago was this?
I don't know, it's been implemented 4 or 5 years.
Okay.
2018.
Okay.
How many people are participating? Almost no produce
First I
growers.
heard of it.
Because they're still crying that they don't have the same policies as corn grower,
Okay.
but they have the same policies as corn grower. The catch is, you have to have a year's history.
But you also have, I feel like there's also like requirements for, you have to grow the same crops year in and year out, which produce farmers don't always do. And also that you said today that they should not do.
That's a good segue.
Right.
So,
That's like
I want to point out, it seems like there's a, like, a lot of people are thinking of it as like a CSA type farm. And then, but the possibility that Ron's talking about is, what if we just pick a couple crops and figure out how to grow them really efficiently at a lower price point?
And make money.
Yeah, what's the right solution? So then we, as a CSA guy, you've got 100 crops, so it's a lot of labor.
Yeah.
It's not optimized, it's not scaled.
A CSA can insure revenue.
And then,
It's really for
It's a big
niche
model.
though, yeah.
If you
Would recommend
collected,
starting with that one, but yeah.
if you collected 300,000 last year and you don't collect it this year, you can have revenue insurance and get 85% of your cost. And it doesn't matter if it's weather, doesn't matter if it's a labor shortage issue, it wouldn't matter if you got kicked out of organics, but you were certified organic last year, and you got kicked out, you didn't get some revenue, but you couldn't go organic, you still get paid.
Is that a USDA insurance product?
Yes, Yes, sir.
So we're going to quickly hear the other big ideas then. We'd like to run out with Troy and just do a little bit of a tour of the facility, so we know we'll come back here, we'll wrap up. This has been a fabulous meeting, it's just the very first step. And we'll decide, when we get back, we'll decide what our next steps need to be, okay?
Are we finishing the
Yeah, let's finish the big ideas. and
Big
we'll go
ideas,
through it.
this table.
How about this, Tommy, Galen?
Tommy.
I feel like the big idea maybe that came out of our table earlier was that, like, we're kind of at a point here where we're talking about switching a lot of large food production to Iowa because of pressures happening in other parts of the country that say, oh, we wanna actually produce more of our food in the Midwest. But we'd actually, I mean, I think there's a risk, which is that we just transfer the same production tools that they're using in other parts of the country right now that are potentially exploiting labor, and the environment, and just moving those exact same production mechanisms to our farms in Iowa, which might be better than just growing corn and soybeans, but is it actually the food system that we wanna support here? And I think, from my perspective, and from, I think, a farm viability perspective, the right way to start scaling up production is not to go immediately and try and sell into like the largest possible buyer. Because when you do that, there's gonna be more and more middlemen, and the farmer's gonna get less and less price. And so my thought is that the farmer needs to sell into, as direct into like the local grocery stores as they can. And I think that's where, like, the more localized warehouses can sell into just 5 or 6 Hy-Vee stores, but do that in different areas of the state. So that's my perspective, because I think that saves more of the price for the farmer to get the price that they need to survive, and have some of those other values like ecology and paying their workers enough. Yeah, instead of spending all their money getting it through 2 or 3 warehouses before it actually gets into the customer's hands.
Yeah, actually, when we sold
Distributed.
Hy-Vee corporate, and we stopped selling to the stores, which I thought it was gonna be an either or, that's what I was told. But in fact, we could continue to do both. And the produce managers that we sold to, I said, well, our cucumbers are coming through corporate now, and they said, oh, no, we want them direct from you.
Okay, so, we're gonna parking lot that, the next big idea from this table.
He left and she left.
Okay,
We were just wondering what happened to her.
come on,
I'm
table.
not the spokesperson,
Come back.
but I just got called back into grandma duty in Des Moines, so. We were talking about soil quality and being able to measure all that and being able to, for consumers to be able to readily distinguish between high quality food, more nutrient dense food, and contaminants. Hopefully down the road, hopefully not that long, there may be some technology that could be an app in your phone to be able to accomplish that. But one of the other ideas I was just talking to Ron about, I don't live down here, but I believe it could, you said it in your introduction. What about distinguishing a brand down here of quality, organic, something that is exceptional, and see if something like that would be palatable or value add for Hy-Vee or other companies, but really create something special down here as far as quality, nutrient density, and clean food.
I like that, Carol.
Sorry, I have to leave, but thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you, Carol. Okay, one more big idea, then we gotta go, because Troy's got a meeting at 3.
Yeah, ours is that 5 years, how do you transition a standard broad acre corn and bean into high value produce production ground? So building a model where that is quickly accessible and incorporating animals in quick, very skillful, very astute rotations, using a model that is kind of more like a cooperative model where you're not actually expecting that farmer to have the skill base to learn a whole nother trade, a whole nother skill to manage that. You have that as a service that's offered by the cooperative, by the hub, it's a transition program. So you've got a farmer that comes through with grass-fed, grass-finished, really resilient breeds coming in. Whatever needs to come first, you assess the land, figure out what needs to come first, bring it, whether it's a diversified cover crop mix, then you go into a pasture mix, then you bring in the grazing animals, then you transition into another, easy kind of butternut squash, whatever it is, and then you get them set up for that high production opportunity, but you walk them through it in a mentoring type of way with services through the cooperative.
Hey, Faith, doesn't PFI effectively do that?
No.
No.
Okay.
They facilitate and help train growers, but they don't train them necessarily on one type of grower.
This is a cohort of people that are starting out, beginning farmers.
So that sounded like a really good business plan for PFI.
Okay, so, good. Mary Ellen has one comment, then we're gonna run out, and then
I just want to
everyone can come
remind
back.
us that, to me, all these big ideas, we need to remind ourselves, I think, why we're here. Because we haven't really collectively answered that why question. Why is this even important? Why are we spending our day here worrying about this? Our big issue is food insecurity.
That's right, food security.
The future of our food is no longer secure, globally, even in this country. So to me, that should be part of our bigger message. Yes, because otherwise, what's the end product here? So I think addresses some of your concerns is about, yes, we need more growers, but why do we need more growers? I mean, I can go to the store and buy everything I need right now.
Yeah.
But in 10 years, I'm not sure that's gonna be true.